The gap between staying broke forever and building real wealth is smaller than most people realize. It comes down to about $15,000, a threshold almost nobody crosses, and your salary has nothing to do with it. Nobody in the financial industry wants to tell you this truth because it sounds too simple. They need you to believe wealth is complicated, but it isn't. Wealth is arithmetic, and the arithmetic shows that everything starts working differently once you cross a certain threshold. I'm Ray Dalio. I built Bridgewater Associates into the largest hedge fund in the world, managing over $124 billion. I have advised central banks, governments, and some of the wealthiest families on the planet. I predicted the 2008 financial crisis. I navigated the dot-com crash, the debt crisis, and every major economic cycle for the last 50 years. But here's what nobody talks about. In 1982, I lost everything. I publicly predicted a depression that never came. I was confident. I was certain. I was the smartest guy in the room. I was completely wrong. The market went up, the economy boomed, and I looked like an idiot. My clients left. My reputation was destroyed. I had to borrow $4,000 from my father just to pay my bills. That failure forced me to ask a question. What separates people who build lasting wealth from people who stay broke their entire lives? So I spent the next 5 years studying them. I analyzed thousands of wealth-building attempts. I interviewed hundreds of successful investors, and I found one pattern that separated winners from losers. It wasn't intelligence. It wasn't connections, it wasn't luck, it was crossing one specific threshold and understanding what happens after you cross it. That threshold is $15,000. If you're working a modest job, bringing home an ordinary paycheck and wondering whether financial independence is even possible for someone like you, then sit down and pay attention. Difficult beginnings are something I understand. Starting with almost nothing is familiar territory for me. Earning a modest salary, watching every dollar, and feeling like the mountain is too high to climb. Here's what most people get wrong about money. The early stages of wealth building are brutally and painfully slow. You save a few hundred and it just sits there. Then you add more and the pile grows at a pace that feels almost insulting. Other people are buying things, taking vacations, living what looks like a better life, and you start wondering if you're the fool. Most people quit right here. At the moment when everything feels pointless, what escapes them is that they're standing at the base of an exponential curve. The early part of that curve appears nearly flat, like nothing is happening. But the curve isn't actually flat. It's waiting. Quitting now means never seeing what happens next. Some simple arithmetic is worth understanding because the elementary mathematics of compound interest is one of the most important models on Earth. Suppose you manage to save $400 a month, which adds up to $4,800 a year. At the end of year one, you have $4,800 plus whatever small return you earned, so you end up with maybe $5,000. You sacrifice for an entire year, brown bagging your lunches, skipping vacations, driving the old car, and all you have to show for it is $5,000. This is where the weak-minded give up. They look at that $5,000 and calculate how long it would take to become wealthy at this pace, doing the math wrong because they think linearly. If saving $5,000 takes a whole year, they tell themselves, then saving $100,000 will take 20 years. And by then, they'll be old. So what's the point? The thinking is exactly backwards. This error keeps more people poor than any economic system, any unfair boss, any rigged game you want to blame. The first $15,000 is where everything changes. Not because $15,000 is a magic number, but because of what happens psychologically and mathematically once you cross that threshold. Psychologically, you stop feeling like a person who can't save money. Your identity shifts, and you have proof that you can do this. A cushion exists that lets you sleep at night. Options you didn't have before suddenly appear, and you're no longer one car repair away from disaster. Mathematically, your money starts working in ways you can actually see. Even a modest return on $15,000 generates $1,200 a year without you lifting a finger. That's not life-changing yet, but it's visible and real, and it compounds. Here's the part people dramatically underestimate. The returns on your money start approaching, then matching, then exceeding what you can add through savings alone. With $1,000 saved, a 10% return produces $100, which is almost meaningless. With $15,000 saved, that same 10% return produces $1,500, which is nearly a third of what you saved from your salary that year. $30,000 in savings means the return hits $3,000. Now your money contributes as much as you contribute. $75,000 in savings produces $7,500. Your money works harder than most people work at their jobs. $150,000 in savings produces $15,000. Now your money is earning more annually than the entire threshold that changed everything. This is the great secret of wealth. The first portion requires almost entirely your sacrifice, with you doing all the work while your money does almost nothing. But a crossover point arrives where your money starts carrying more and more of the load, and you can ease off the gas a little. Most people never reach this crossover point because they quit during the hard part, quitting when they are doing all the work and their money is doing nothing. They look at the math and can't imagine how this slow crawl could ever turn into real wealth. But the math doesn't lie. The curve is exponential, with the early part flat and the later part steep. And nobody gets to the steep part without surviving the flat part first. Mental errors trap people in poverty, and understanding them is worth your time. The first error is impatience. Great investing demands a lot of delayed gratification. And if you didn't get the deferred gratification gene, you got to work very hard to overcome that. Most people cannot sit still and cannot wait. They see neighbors buying boats and taking cruises, and something inside them breaks. Missing out becomes an obsession. So they spend their seed corn to feel better today and guarantee their poverty tomorrow. The arithmetic of patience is brutal. In the early years, you were saving $400 a month and watching your account grow by tiny increments while the world around you screams to spend. Advertisements hit you thousands of times a day. Your coworkers talk about their new cars. Social media shows you carefully curated images of people living lives you can't afford. And something in the human brain interprets all of this as evidence that you were falling behind, that your sacrifice is pointless, that you should just enjoy life now, because tomorrow isn't guaranteed anyway. This is where most wealth-building attempts die, not from bad investments, not from market crashes, but from the simple inability to wait. The person who could have been wealthy at 50 is broke at 50 because they couldn't tolerate being less flashy than their neighbors at 30. Mozart became the most famous composer in the world, creating music that will be played for centuries. And yet Mozart was utterly miserable most of his life, for one simple reason. He always overspent his income, no matter how much he earned, and he died broke. Here was a man with gifts that appear once in a century, earning substantial sums for his era. And none of it mattered because the money left faster than it came in. If Mozart couldn't get away with this behavior, what makes you think you can? The uncomfortable truth is that your income level has almost nothing to do with whether you build wealth. High earners go broke all the time because they simply scale up their spending to match or exceed whatever they bring in. A person earning $40,000 who saves $5,000 a year will end up wealthier than a person earning $200,000 who saves nothing. The arithmetic doesn't care about your job title or your tax bracket. The second error is envy. The world isn't driven by greed, but by envy. And I've watched envy destroy more financial plans than any market crash. You have a good plan. You're saving money. You're making progress toward $15,000. And then you see someone else getting richer faster than you. Suddenly your plan feels inadequate, so you start taking stupid risks to catch up. Spending money to prove you're not falling behind. Destroying yourself trying to match people who might be destroying themselves too. What makes envy particularly dangerous is that it attacks people who are actually succeeding. You'll need envy to destroy someone with no plan and no discipline. Those people will fail anyway. Envy reserves its worst damage for the person who was doing everything right until they looked sideways and saw someone else pulling ahead. The neighbor with the new car might be financing it at 18% interest. The colleague who just bought the bigger house might be one layoff away from foreclosure. The friend who seems to be getting rich quick might be about to lose everything. You don't know their real situation, but envy doesn't care about reality. Envy only sees the surface. And this surface is designed to deceive. Someone will always be getting richer faster than you. And this is not a tragedy. The tragedy is letting that fact derail your own progress toward $15,000. Envy stands out as a really stupid sin because it's the only one where you could never possibly have any fun. With gluttony, at least you get to enjoy the meal. But envy just leaves you sitting there feeling miserable about someone else's success, getting nothing out of it except misery. I conquered envy in my own life many years ago. Nobody gets my envy, and I don't give a damn what somebody else has. This mental shift alone is worth millions of dollars over a lifetime. When you stop measuring yourself against others and start measuring yourself against your own plan, your own goals, your own timeline, the psychological pressure evaporates. The third error is self-pity. Self-pity gets pretty close to paranoia, which is one of the very hardest things to reverse. Drifting into self-pity is something you do not want. Every time you find yourself drifting into self-pity, regardless of the cause, stop it immediately. Your situation might be difficult. Your starting point might be low. Self-pity still won't help. It will only paralyze you and make you weaker. Inversion is one of the most powerful mental tools for getting rich, and almost nobody uses it. Most people think about success by asking what they need to do to get rich. But that's the wrong question. The right question is, what would guarantee staying poor forever, and how can those things be avoided? An old saying captures this perfectly. All I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there. What guarantees financial failure? The answers become obvious once you bother to list them. Spending more than you earn is guaranteed failure. Not saving anything is guaranteed failure. Taking on high-interest debt is guaranteed failure. Being unreliable guarantees that nobody will want to work with you or promote you. Feeling sorry for yourself makes you passive when you need to be active. Acting on envy makes you take stupid risks. Once you've identified all the behaviors that guarantee failure, the strategy becomes simple. Don't do those things. Remarkable long-term advantage comes from trying to be consistently not stupid instead of trying to be very intelligent. People are trying to be smart. All I'm trying to do is not be idiotic, but that's harder than most people think. A principle that seems obvious but gets almost universally ignored deserves attention here. Spend less than you make. Always be saving something, and over time, it will begin to amount to something. This is such a no-brainer. The simplicity is striking. Spend less than you earn. Invest shrewdly. Avoid toxic people and toxic activities. Keep learning all your life. And do a lot of deferred gratification. Doing all those things makes reaching $15,000 almost certain. And not doing them means you're going to need a lot of luck. Let me tell you what happened after I borrowed that $4,000 from my father in 1982. I didn't just need to rebuild my fund. I needed to rebuild my entire approach. So I went back to basics. I studied my mistakes. I wrote down every principle I had violated. And I created a system that would prevent me from making those mistakes again. Within 2 years, I had paid back my father. Within 5 years, Bridgewater had $5 million under management. Today we manage $124 billion, but here's what most people don't understand about that growth. It didn't happen because I got smarter. It happened because I built a system and I stuck to it. The same principle applies to personal wealth. Getting to $15,000 requires a system, not motivation, not willpower, a system. You automate your savings. The day you get paid, you track every dollar. You increase your income through side work. You cut wasteful spending. And you do this every single month regardless of how you feel. Something about leverage needs to be understood because this is where smart people destroy themselves right before crossing $15,000. 3 ways exist for smart people to go broke: liquor, ladies, and leverage, with leverage being the worst. The pattern repeats over and over. A person accumulates some wealth, maybe $8,000 or $10,000, and then gets impatient. Borrowing money to invest follows. For a while, it works beautifully because leverage magnifies gains. Then something goes wrong. The market drops. And suddenly leverage is magnifying losses. Everything is lost. At Bridgewater, we've always been careful about excessive leverage. And that's not cowardice, but arithmetic. Getting rich only needs to happen once, not 4 times. The beauty of building wealth the slow way is that you only have to do it once. Getting to $15,000 without leverage means nobody can take it away from you. Earning power deserves discussion because saving money is only half the equation. The safest way to get what you want is to try to deserve what you want. Earning more requires becoming more valuable, developing skills that people will pay for, becoming reliable, knowledgeable, and capable. And learning must continue forever. People constantly rise in life who are not the smartest, but they are learning machines who go to bed every night a little wiser than they were when they got up. Over a long run, that makes all the difference. Wisdom acquisition is a moral duty. Lifetime learning is mandatory. Without it, you're not going to do very well. No wise people exist who didn't read all the time. None. Zero. If you're sitting there with a small salary thinking you're stuck, understand this. Your salary today is not your salary forever, but it will be your salary forever. But it will be your salary forever if you stop learning. Continuing to learn increases your earning power. And as your earning power increases, your ability to save increases. And as your savings increase, compounding takes over. Let me tell you about a partnership I entered in my early years. A friend and I each contributed $15,000 to a real estate deal. That was every dollar I had saved at the time. We bought a small apartment building, renovated it, raised the rents, and 3 years later sold it. That $15,000 turned into $47,000. My first real taste of what capital can do when deployed intelligently. But here's the key. I couldn't have done that deal with $5,000. The opportunity required $15,000 minimum. Being below that threshold meant I would have watched that opportunity pass by. Crossing the threshold meant I could participate. The point isn't that you should do exactly what I did. The point is that once you have $15,000 in capital, opportunities appear that are invisible to people without capital. Capital attracts opportunity, and opportunity generates more capital. The rich get richer not because the system is unfair, but because having money allows you to make more money. Your job is to get enough capital to enter that virtuous cycle, and $15,000 is where that cycle begins. Patience is where most people fail. The big money is not in the buying or the selling, but in the waiting. Most people cannot wait because they want to feel active. Buying and selling constantly means paying fees, paying taxes on short-term gains, and interrupting the compounding process that would have made them wealthy if they had just sat still. The first rule of compounding is never interrupt unnecessarily. Every time you sell an investment that's working, you pay taxes. Every time you pay taxes, you have less capital compounding. Simple arithmetic governs all of this. But people keep getting it wrong because they can't sit still. Here's something critical. You need to understand about where we are right now in 2026. We're at the end of a 75-year debt cycle. I've studied these cycles for 50 years. I've seen what happens when they end. And they don't end quietly. Total debt in the economy is over $90 trillion. Government debt alone is $35 trillion. When you reach the point where interest payments exceed defense spending, you're at the end stage. And when debt cycles end, 3 things happen: defaults, restructuring, or inflation, every time, throughout 500 years of history. And in every case, the people with capital survive and prosper. The people without capital get destroyed. Getting to $15,000 before the crisis hits means you're a buyer when everyone else is forced to sell. You can pick up assets at fire sale prices. You can wait out the storm. You can take advantage of the chaos instead of being a victim of it. This is not optional anymore. This is survival. The window is closing. We're 12 to 24 months away from the next major deleveraging. And if you don't have $15,000 by then, you're going to be one of the casualties. The point of getting rich is not accumulating possessions. The point is freedom. It's about being able to make your own choices without asking anyone's permission. Being broke means taking whatever job you can get. Having $15,000 changes everything. Saying no becomes possible. Waiting for the right opportunity becomes an option. This is what changes after $15,000. Your whole relationship with life starts to shift. What not to do with growing wealth matters because many people go wrong right at the moment of success. Don't start living large the moment you cross $15,000. The people who build lasting wealth keep their expenses flat, even as their savings grow. Every dollar you don't spend is a dollar that compounds. Don't listen to people selling complex financial products. The financial industry makes money from complexity, while you make money from simplicity. Don't check your investments every day. The more often you look, the more likely you are to do something stupid. Don't try to time the market. Just find good investments and hold them. If you want to carry one message from everything I've told you, here it is. Spend less than you earn. Work hard. Keep learning. Be reliable. Be patient. Avoid debt. Avoid envy. Avoid self-pity. Stay within your circle of competence. Don't do stupid things. None of this is complicated, but all of it is difficult. The difficulty lies not in understanding what to do, but in actually doing it day after day, year after year, when the progress is slow and the temptations are constant. The first $15,000 will be hard, and you'll wonder if it's worth it. You'll be tempted to spend it. You'll watch other people who seem to be living larger lives ignore all of that and stay the course, because once you cross $15,000, something starts to shift. Proof that you can do this exists. Your money starts earning enough that you can see it. The psychology of scarcity begins to lift, and the push toward $30,000 comes, and your money contributes meaningfully. Then the push toward $75,000, and your money works almost as hard as you do. And beyond that, the curve steepens dramatically. Financial freedom waits, but none of it happens without surviving the flat part of the curve. None of it happens without crossing that first $15,000 threshold. Understanding both the power of compound interest and the difficulty of getting it is the heart and soul of understanding wealth. Now you understand, and the question is what you're going to do about it. If anything you really want to accomplish exists, don't wait. Time is the essential ingredient in compounding, and every year you delay is a year of growth you'll never get back. Start now, save something, avoid stupidity, keep learning, be patient. The choice is yours. Follow the principles or follow the crowd. Build real wealth or look wealthy. I know which one works. I've seen it work for 50 years. Now you know it too. Go execute.